We are going to move to our fourth item today. This is an ordinance of the City of Bellingham regarding Planning Commission membership, amending Section 2.42.020 of the Bellingham Municipal Code. Consideration of an ordinance of the City of Bellingham regarding Planning Commission membership, amending the BMC regarding the makeup of Planning Commission members so that no more than 3 voting members of the Commission may engage principally in the buying, selling, developing, construction of, or investment in real estate for profit. On November 14th, the Council asked staff to insert Councilmember Hamill's language into the ordinance for further consideration. The Legal Department added language to clarify the intent and effect of the ordinance, and I'm going to hand this over to Terry Borneman.
Yes, thank you, Pinky. Yes, as you stated at our last meeting, Commissioner Hamill offered new language in an addition, which is subsection C in the packet that was approved by the council to move forward, and the attorney's office offered added subsection E and section 2. In having conversations with City Attorney Alan Mariner, who was working on this, I had talked with him about subsection E and language in it, because there was some, what? Oh, subsection F. I'm sorry. Yes, can't read from this distance. Need better prescription. Yeah, subsection F. And there was some confusion about the word guiding in this relating to the sections C, D, and E above are for the purpose of guiding the mayor and city council. Could this be misconstrued to read that section D wasn't firm, but just a guiding principle? So in talking with Mr. Mariner, he had suggested that we remove the word guiding so that that section would read the desired composition and limitations regarding membership set forth in subsection C, D, and E above are for the purpose of the mayor appointing and the city council confirming planning commission members. Subsection C, D, and E shall not provide a basis for challenging any activity of the commission in the execution of its powers and duties. So I would like to offer that change to the council. I'd like to make the motion that change be made, of removing that with that language put in that. So I would move that.
Okay.
Yeah, she's good.
So is the motion just to change the language, or the motion is for the ordinance?
It's just, at this point, just to change that so we can discuss the
ordinance. Okay, so we are voting on the amendment to the ordinance on item number E in the ordinance. F, sorry.
F.
See,
yes,
now
I know.
Yeah.
I'm a confusing element.
So again, we are just voting on the change, the verbal change in the amendment. Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
And then it was my understanding that Michael had a couple changes on the...
They're really in the matter of clarifications and I hope improvements. Thanks, Terry, for making that more kind of substantive one. They both have to do with Section D. One of them refers to contractors, and there's like so many million different kinds of contractors. I think we mean construction contractors. And so I'm going to make a motion that we insert the adjective construction before contractors in Section D, but I want to make another change as well. So it's near the bottom. There's a long list of occupations: consultants, architects, appraisers, contractors, and landscapers. There's so many different kinds of contractors. I think we mean construction contractors. Also in that section, in discussing it with another one of our city attorneys, Mr. Rufato, he said that there's a possibility someone could misread it or try to read it as applying to someone who had clients who were also principally involved in real estate development or interests. So if you were an accountant and had a couple clients who were principally involved in it, did it apply to you too, you the accountant? And so to remove that ambiguity, I'm going to suggest a change in the second sentence, which says this paragraph also applies to professionals, consultants, and advisors. Instead of saying who contract directly with clients and customers that engage principally in, I would change that to strike who contract directly with, and then also the later word that. So it now reads, this paragraph applies to professionals, consultants, and advisors for whom a majority of clients and customers engage principally in buying, selling, developing, construction, or investment in real estate for profit. I emailed that change around to council members earlier. Hopefully you've had a chance to look at that. I know Mr. Rafata received a copy of that. So I would make a motion for those two clarifications to section D.
Second. We have a motion in front of us, and then again, this is to change the language in the ordinance. This is an item number D. Any discussion before we take the vote on that? Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Councilmember Barker.
In looking at the Portland language, it was buying, selling, and leasing. And I know we have an issue, or at least a concern within a couple neighborhoods of predatory leasing that they feel like is happening. So I was just interested in the development of this, why the leasing term got left out.
This is the way we wrote it. We didn't take Portland's.
Was there consideration, or was there a reason maybe we didn't feel like the leasing agent should be held in there?
This is how we wrote it. We didn't take Portland's. You know, there was other sections. That's why we didn't limit it to 2 people. We said 3 people and others. You know, that was just a part of the guiding principle.
Do you think the leasing would be something you would want to lump into this, since it?
Councilmember Lillquist.
Well, I'm just thinking that the planning commissions and its zoning decisions, I think it really applies to changes in zoning that lead to new development. It really is more about new development and changes in construction. So I'm at the moment happy leaving out leasing, because you lease existing properties for which there's no zoning changes ever involved. Why reach further than we need to?
Rental registration came through the Planning Commission, so somebody that leases a lot of properties, I mean, if this is about bias and influence. So I just want to, we cited the Portland, so I want to make sure that we're being clear on what our intentions are, and if that's something that there's a concern with council. I just wanted to ask the question.
Councilmember Portman.
Yes. With the changes that were approved, I would like to move approval of this ordinance.
Second.
Councilmember Parker.
So we had a public comment, and I think we had a comment, Jean, when somebody had walked up to the dais when this first came out, of if this is going to go to the public for public comment. Is that, I know it's not a mandated process, but it's certainly something I'd like to hear what the rest of the community thinks about it.
I have a comment, and then Councilmember. Personally, I think I would feel a lot better if there was a public hearing about it. I've heard as much emphasis on one side as another, and I kind of feel uncomfortable about passing this all on my own. Not on my own, but without that kind of opportunity. So that is something I would support. Councilmember Borneman.
Yeah, we've gotten considerable public comment on this. This has been out here for a few weeks. We've received literally hundreds of comments. We've received, at least officially in the mail thing, 2 against this. We've received letters with hundreds of support of this. We've received comments from the League of Women Voters, from ex-members. I mean, we've received a lot of public input and public comment. We can take it another step, but it's not something I don't think we need. We know what we're going to, you know. We've received all of this. If there's all of this support against, Where is it?
Well,
We haven't seen any of it.
respectfully,
It hasn't come
Councilmember
to
Borneman,
the
I
council.
don't think people are sending their objections directly to you because you proposed it, but I will say that we have received comments on both sides. It is not one-sided, and there is concern that this is special interest, and there is concern that every single person, no matter what we walk into, whether we're council members or on a planning commission or whatever it is, there is opportunity for bias in every situation. It also means that people come into it with a different level of education in an environment, and I think that there is an opportunity for bias and special interest in regardless of what role you take in, so this just kind of makes me a little uncomfortable. I would prefer that we took it another step forward. Councilmember Barker.
So my comments weren't so that we could hear, we're making a change to our citizen group. So it wasn't about getting people who are opposed or for it. It's just getting a bit broader of a consensus. And I do recognize we have to look at, and which I hope will take this a step further, all of our commissions and boards. It's something that we really need to deal with. And I'm glad we're taking this first step. But I also think that it was the people that we've heard from are the people that are aware and plugged in. And just out of respect to our community, we're making a change to a citizen committee. And we may see very little feedback, and then we move forward and we know that we said, yes, we sent this out, everybody got appropriately noticed, and we'll see where we go from there. But because of the citizen committee, that was my only question for council.
Councilmember Lillquist.
I guess I'd like to draw attention to what we're not changing. We are not changing any of the duties or powers of the Planning Commission. What we are not doing is the way that they are picked and the way that they are approved. What we are not doing is changing the historical composition of the Planning Commission, which has always, almost always, had a reasonable balance, sometimes formally watchdog and sometimes not formally watchdog. None of those things are changing. So I see us as less as changing things than as making sure things don't change, that we adhere to long established practices of balance, long established practice of not overbalancing the commission. So I think of us as not making great changes, but actually kind of, officializing tradition.
Yeah, I wanted to say this last time we talked about it, but I didn't, but over the last 23 years that I've been here, I've only seen one person, I will not mention any names, it's been a long time ago, only one person get one no vote in all that time. So, nothing's really broken on that end of it. I would never want this council to be in charge of picking planning commission members. I watched the county council meetings when they pick planning commission members, and I don't want to go through that at all. I think the way we have it set up is fine. I think it's unfortunate, and I feel bad for the sitting members of the Planning Commission, because it is unfortunate that it is perceived that way, and it is that way, and they do what they do, and that's their business. But it's been brought up, and it's widely known that this sort of action, I think, is necessary. I think we do need to change this and to make it clear what it's all about. And I agree with April. This should not be the only board or commission we look at. Over time, we don't really spend much time looking at boards and commissions. We have a hard time getting people to come on those. But and I just want to emphasize what Terry did when he first brought it up. This has absolutely nothing to do with the people that sit there now. They have done a great job, but it doesn't take a road scholar to figure out that the makeup perceptually does not look right in the decisions that they have to make. And then that's unfortunate, and it'll keep happening if we don't put it in language. And I can't ever remember working on changing language at all on the Planning Commission. So, and as far as the public hearing is concerned, I could go either way, but I have to agree with Terry and Michael a little bit. To have a public hearing on this, it's not a big, huge change. It's we all get emails from everybody. We know how they feel about it, but so I would probably err on the side of just passing this now and not having a public hearing.
Any other comments before we take a vote? Oh, sorry, Councilmember Barker, and okay, Councilmember Parker.
So, and I don't know, it might be more appropriate after we all vote on this. I think regardless, it's been brought up a couple times that there can be bias on all sides. And one thing that in bringing this forward to all of our attention was looking at all the different ways that you can look at a planning commission and reduce those bias. One is adding a code of ethics, and the American Planning Association has one. Several different groups have them. It's just one more way that, we're looking at the bias from a development potential, but there could be bias in all sorts of ways. So I'd be interested, and I don't know if it's appropriate to do it now or wait till we vote on this, to ask staff to bring back a potential for code of ethics if it's necessary, or if it wouldn't work for this group at a previous work session, and we could determine if that might be like a 2.4, 2.070. So every time a new planning commissioner comes on, they sign on to the code of ethics that talks about you're working for the community and for the betterment of the community, those types of things.
Councilmember Bowman.
Yeah, I would think probably considering it after, since we have a motion on the table right now that we're considering that. Right. Yeah.
Okay. Mayor Kelly, did you want to say anything?
Well, as you know, I'm not happy about this at all. Not because, well, I mean, basically because I think the people that have been unanimously supported for the Planning Commission, as Jean read the history, have done a good job, and I haven't seen any, and nor would I appoint anyone that I believe is looking to benefit personally for what they do. Now, we all know people in public life who are doing that. So I'm the last one that would say that that wouldn't happen. First of all, I absolutely support the APA ethics. We expect people to follow that. That's part of the conversation when we talk to people about being on the Planning Commission. So regardless of whatever you want to do, I'm going to have us start formally doing that, just because. Before we get into just the specifics of what would happen between you passing this and me reappointing people that have done a good job on the Planning Commission, I also want to say that that might be something that we can talk about doing for all of our boards and commissions without the council getting into developing criteria for every board and commission. You guys approve about half of the 200 people I appoint. Hopefully, if there's any concerns or questions about anybody, that those come up to me, which they do sometimes through staff and through the community, or if there's something that I can talk about with an appointee ahead of time saying, this has been a problem. If that continues to be a problem, I'm going to have to remove you, so you got a chance to do this. I do that with members too, because I think it's important for everybody to understand when they're on a board or commission, no matter what their occupation, no matter what their advocacy has been, they represent the public interest of the city. That's the most important thing. So having said that, we looked at the existing Planning Commission members. Phyllis is a realtor, Ali is a consultant, Tom is an architect, Garrett is a contractor, Jeff owns rental property, but his principal business is consulting on waste management systems, and this does not apply to Lisa, nor does it apply to Steve. And so Phyllis and Ali are up for reappointment. Tom will be termed out April of 17, so next April. And Jeff stayed on only so he could go through the comprehensive plan. He was going to resign before he got reappointed last time, but he made a good faith effort to stay on the commission because he knew it was going to be a difficult year if we had a whole bunch of new members. But he is ready to resign and move on. And so as soon as we have a replacement for that position, then he's ready to step off the commission. I think that the people that are up for reappointment, which are Phyllis and Ali, have done a good job. They were all approved unanimously. They're finishing their first term, and I would like to reappoint them to the commission. The only problem would be that Tom is not off the commission until April. So I guess one of the things I'm asking is that we would leave, that this would not take effect until Tom resigns, because then we would just have 3 people on the commission that met the criteria that you've indicated you want. And I don't see that any of those people, I mean, I will be nominating them, and if I have to, maybe I'll ask Tom if he minds getting off a few months early, which I don't really want to do, but he doesn't want to continue, and the other people do. So I guess that's the one consideration I have, believing that I don't really think it's necessary to do this, and I feel like I would like to support the people that you all supported to be on the Planning Commission that have been making some really hard decisions in the last couple of years. So that's all I had to say. And then I don't know if you want to let Rick make some comments, or if you have any questions for Rick.
If I might, make a few comments. Although the sitting planning commissioners may have differed in opinion from staff to date, I've always respected their point of view, and I always believe that they truthfully tried to act in the best interest of the city. And I think that's being acknowledged by council. My concern is that the 3 remaining members who now are designated representatives of the building community might choose to represent that point of view. And while that may be appropriate or not appropriate based on the issue, it shouldn't be exclusive. I'm very supportive of developing a code of ethics that would talk about all the commissioners, regardless of their role or composition, looking at the broader city's best interest first, before they look at their specific field or their issues. I don't think the intent of council, as I understand it, is to say these 3 remaining individuals are representatives of the building community and have to act in that function. I believe that's the case, and certainly would welcome a confirmation of that. Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay.
I do have one.
Councilmember
I
Barker?
think that Rick asked for a confirmation from the council about the existing members. Did you not?
I asked for, you're creating a, in the proposed ordinance, council's purview is to do this, is to create designated a maximum number of positions for specific folks involved in the development or building industry itself. But they're not designated representatives from that. And I'm asking for a confirmation of that. And we would incorporate that into the code of ethics.
Okay. Councilmember Barker, then Lillquist.
Well, for myself, they're bringing so much more to the table than just their positions. I mean, many have, I think Ollie has lived here his entire life, has deep family roots and connections. Yeah, and so, so I would prefer nobody is representing one single interest. That's my preference. And once we get through this conversation, I do have a question in regards to the ordinance.
Councilmember Lillquist.
Yeah, the ordinance does not say, and I do not support the idea that planning commission members are representatives for their profession. Each of us, except for Roxanne, is elected from a particular district, but I don't just represent my district. I try to bring everything in my background forward. I expect that in every planning commissioner. So yeah, the idea of representation, that's not what we're talking about. We're just talking about balance, so we have a diversity of backgrounds, and they can represent every aspect of their humanity when they come forward.
Councilmember Borneman.
Yeah, and I agree exactly with what Michael was saying. People may have seen a letter that was sent to the council from David Auer, who had been a past Planning Commission member and chair of the Planning Commission. And he talked about, in the past, there was kind of a unwritten rule with Planning Commission that there were 3 slots that were dedicated, just like this is written up. And when somebody came off from the industry, another industry person was appointed for those 3 people. And wasn't written down, but that was pretty much how things were followed. And it wasn't with the intent that it's just for them to come and represent just the building industry. It's because they do have special knowledge and other things about that, about the building community and things that are important to have on that commission. Like it's important sometimes to have, legal expertise on certain commissions or other kinds of things. But it doesn't make, as Michael pointed out, my district kind of rings around the university. It's the 5th ward, but I'm not appointed just to represent that. I'm elected and I'm here to represent the whole of the city, and that's what our intent is with this. Does that help, Rick? Thanks.
Councilmember Hamel.
I think that was the intention, well, what I was trying to get at when I introduced item C, that the membership of the commission should, to the extent practical, reflect a broad range of opinion, experience, and expertise with the objective of providing sound advice representative of the citizenry. So it is that broader component. It's not siloed representation.
Mayor Kelly?
And I agree with that, and I agree with that language that you've put forward, but Terry just used the word slot. And slot slot to me means something a little bit different. I think you've reassured me that you don't mean slot, that you mean they should look out after everything, but it's just, to me, it's hard to understand why we have to pick on these certain people. Whatever it was before, being part of the development community doesn't matter at all to me when it comes to appointing the best person. So that was never my interest, that we have 3 people that would represent the building community. But having said that, I'd like a response maybe after you vote to explain, tell me how I should deal with this transition, or how you would, if you can accommodate my recommendations on this transition time.
Councilmember Barker.
Just 2 clarifications as I read through this. It does say for profit, so I do want to clarify that the 3 positions that would get taken up with anybody remotely involved in development will not include, if we're able to get representation, say from Colshan Land, somebody who works for Colshan Land Trust or Opportunity Council, because of the nonprofit. Is that correct? But this would not, they would not be put into that bracket?
I don't know. We originally thought that they were in that, but I'm not sure. It doesn't, yeah. I guess it's that they're not for profit, so it wouldn't be, yeah. They're not making their living off that, yeah.
Is that what council is agreeing to, that the nonprofit community would not be included in these 3 positions? Okay, thank you. That was important.
Yeah.
I had one more. Okay. So employees, and I just want us to be clear when we do this. So I read through the Neighborhood Coalition group had sent some studies forward that were done by a professor at Drake University, and actually called the professor at Drake University to understand better what his intent was. And by his 3rd article, he wrote 3, all relating to Planning Commission and this bias, and why it's so important that, we take it a step further. He starts to remove language from being the development community, and he starts to replace with white collar versus blue collar. And he starts to really get into the understanding of, even if we get rid of these biases, what we generally tend to have are people in more white collar positions, and it's people that are of a breadth of that social economic diversity in the community that all need to be represented. So as I went through on the internet, I was trying to understand, what are all these positions that we're restricting to 3 because of the bias, and I understand the intent of the ordinance. But when it got down to employees, I think, and the point that the professor brought up, he thought maybe that's going toward that surrogate, the person who might not want to be part of the 3, but they're the secretary of the main business owner, and so therefore you would say employees, so that surrogate person wouldn't get onto. I think that there's a way to deal with the surrogate issue if somebody's trying to get double representation, or coming in as an employee or a wife or a partner, because through the Code of Ethics. My concern is when you look at employees of all of this, you're talking about a lot of blue-collar positions, and I'm not quite sure that that's the intent of what we're trying to get at. You're talking about the roofers, the tilers, I mean, if you can just think about construction and all the things, people that work for the architect firm, all the way down to the secretaries, I want to make sure that our intent is correct and that we're really going to get what we want and we're not going to run into an unintended consequences. So that employees for me is my only sticking point. And I just want to make sure that we're all aware of how far that goes down. And if it's truly we're worried about a surrogate or somebody who is representing that community, we should state that and not therefore take on all the employees of a particular consultant or architect or, I mean, it really goes quite far. I mean, to a point where we've said here a landscaper and an environmental consultant, I'm not sure that that's necessary. But I'd like to hear comments from council on that.
And Councilmember Lillquist has his hand up right here, so I'll let you take
My comment is you could have a roofer, a plumber, a carpenter as the 3 representatives. There's no reason why the representatives need to be the money behind the development. I think it'd be great if we had a roofer, a plumber, and a carpenter on the Planning Commission. I think they would bring real-world experience both in the construction trades and in life. So this is not a rule against the employees. They're included as valuable people with the same useful on-the-ground perspective.
Mayor Kelly.
So you're saying that, but they'd be one of the 3, correct? Is that what you're saying?
Seems to me like there
Yeah.
would be an employee in a corporation principally dealt in, say, construction. So yeah, if you're a carpenter, you're in the building trades, and we need to hear from you. You need to be on the commission, just not all of you.
Councilmember
I want to
Knudsen.
get back to the mayor's request. Which 2 want to be reappointed? Phyllis and Ollie. Garrett's already been, he's not up for reappointment. And Lisa's on, and Jeff is leaving
Jeff?
at the end of this year. Oh, he wants to leave.
As soon as we get someone to take his place. Jeff Brown has requested to leave the Planning Commission, but he did stay on.
During
He
the
was reappointed and stayed on for I don't even know if I reappointed him. He did not say he wanted to resign during the comprehensive plan because he had experience doing that, and I really appreciated the fact that he said he'd stay, but that wasn't my request. He prefers going.
And Tom's leaving in April. His term's up in April, and he's leaving too.
Well, I think he's
termed out.
That's right.
Fine.
Yeah.
How many terms is it? 3?
I don't know
I think it
offhand.
is.
Yeah,
Terms?
2 sounds right.
What I can say
I
is,
remember years ago, though, not to throw out names, somebody did serve on there 10 years, so that's more than 2 terms, but maybe that was just maybe we gave him another term or something, I don't know.
Or maybe we made the rule after that.
That's very possible, like we're doing now. Uh-oh, there's Uncle Greg, he knows all this.
Good afternoon, Greg Ockett. It used to be 2 6-year terms, which is why
That's
someone was on for
exactly
10
right.
years.
Yeah.
It's the limit of 2 4-year terms is the limit now.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Rick?
yeah, if I might, there is a good efficacy for continuing the sitting, even with this change pending. We want to continue folks who have the touch base to the comprehensive plan, especially in the next year or so. We'll be bringing forward some things that will be implemented. I doubt we'll be bringing anything forward in the next 4 months that will be specifically from that. There's some ongoing work that's going forward. But continuity is very important for a planning commission, as you can understand, certainly for a council. And these reappointments would assure it. But I think the intent here is to come into compliance with the known outcome in April.
Councilman Borneman, did you have?
Yeah, what I'm kind of wondering, and just kind of thinking, is I'm not sure of how you would do this. If we pass this, and I'm reasonably sure we're going to pass this now, if we were to do that, how we would, well, I think we would pass this and then, well, maybe this is what I should ask legal first. If we pass this as written, can we pass something that is a waiver that says, you know, these two being reappointed with the stipulation that the one in April will not, that total will be 3
Well,
at that time?
and if in fact I went against my word and did not follow the law, you could reject the person I brought forward. So that will never be a problem. Or you could potentially make this, it takes effect in April, so you don't have to pass anything else. It'll just all stay the same. And then in April, the rule of 3 will apply.
Oh God, we're back to the rule of 3 again, aren't we?
Yeah, we got
In a
it.
different way.
Peter?
So yeah, just to kind of lay out the options, I mean, we have a section 2, which kind of addresses something that's not an ongoing thing. You could put something specifically in section 2. You could make it effective at a later date. You could hold back third and final to a later date. You have lots of options in that.
Yeah.
Councilman Bornman.
I would be willing to pass this with an effective date of April, knowing that if we have, you know, we have the votes that if there's any changes, that would reassure other people that, you know, we have to confirm anyway, so that would be fine with me. So would we add it to, do we need to add it to this, Peter?
Yes, sort of the normal course, any ordinance is effective 15 days after third and final, so you would want to add the effective date. You could just add it to section 2, the effective date of the ordinance shall be fill in the blank.
Yeah, so I will do this, but I really understand the importance of experiencing continuity with some things, and that's why I'm here this term.
I really want to reassure the council that regardless, when you pass an ordinance, it's my responsibility to implement it. So there was never any thought on my part of taking advantage of the fact that I'm asking you to. I just want to make sure everybody understands that. I thought I might have heard something.
Councilmember Barker, then Board.
So if this is left probably till third and final, not happening till April, or if so, could we leave public comment open, or are we doing it where we're going to pass it and we're just saying not into effect until April? Okay.
Yeah.
Councilman Bornman.
So I will make a motion that we add a section here, wherever legal thinks it should go, that this ordinance will take effect on April 1st.
Second. April Fool's Day. Oh, that's reassuring, isn't it?
When's the term?
Does that work?
When does his term up?
April.
We don't know.
Well, I think the first of the month would be probably fine.
Okay.
Greggy knows.
Greg is going to speak to that.
Tom's term is up April 1st.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Any other discussion before I ask for that additional vote? Okay.
Second.
So, okay, thank you. So we have a motion in front of us to add the amendment that this will not go into effect until April 1st, 2017. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Okay, back to our original motion for the ordinance with 3 changes. And before we vote for this, I just wanted to say that I think that the current planning members have all done a really great job. And I want to commend them for the work and the hours and the volunteer that they put into this, because it takes a lot for people to do this job, and I just want to acknowledge them. And I also want to say that, you know, anyone can have a bias that does not have an interest for all the citizens of Bellingham. So we can't just assume that everyone's there for the right reasons or the wrong reasons, and we have to give people the benefit of the doubt that they're willing to be engaged and volunteer and put their heart into the city. So I just want to acknowledge people who do that on our committees. Councilmember Murphy.
I just hope we really will get good and diverse people at our tables. We need this input, we need this involvement.
Okay, so the motion in front of us is to pass the ordinance with the 3 changes in languages. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0.